Hello and welcome to another episode of To Be Honest, a show with a clown, a nerd, a duck, and a degenerate. Today we're going to be talking about the Chris Tyson, Mr. Beast situation, but just yesterday there was a debate between Moist Critikal and Sneako, essentially a debate between a pedo sympathizer and a child genital mutilation sympathizer.
I feel taking a shot at Charlie in the opening is really bad, by the way.
Why is that bad?
I don't know, I just think it's...
I'm just saying what happened.
I didn't watch the entire debate. I just saw a highlight where Sneako gave like a very, very, very minuscule, like a very small, specific example. Because he was on about, I think, marrying someone, right? Like they feel ready. And what were the ages he gave again?
He basically believes that once you've completed puberty, you're okay to consent to marriage as long as you've got your parents' consent. So a 20-something-year-old could be fucking a 15-year-old and he'd be okay with that.
I don't understand that logic of like you believe that someone like no matter what the age can like marry, but then at the same time you think it's disgusting and abhorrent that like someone could go through like trans surgery or whatever at a young age.
It's a clear double standard, 100%.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But then on critical as well, for Charlie as well, it's a complete double standard.
I mean, how do we feel about it with the trans thing? Like, do you think under 18 is okay? Over 18 is okay?
I think we have to agree with whatever you think, Pyro. What do you think about that?
It's really complicated actually, because like I can't instantly jump and be like, oh, anyone should get it, or like, no, you shouldn't do it when you're 18. I do know, for example, people that transitioned when they were younger, when they were like under 18, and their lives were really improved from it in their perspective. But then I also know people that ended up becoming trans when they were a minor, under 18, and then they ended up regretting it and having to almost like revert back to their original gender, and then they hate themselves for it and think, well, I made such a stupid decision when I was, my brain wasn't fully mature and stuff. So it's difficult. I think like what did Critikal bring up? He mentioned like if the parents consent, but then again it's the parents. Like you could be in a household where you feel like you want to be trans and the parents they could be like fully conservative or like fully against you, and that's bad. But then on the flip side of that, you could have someone there, a child growing up that's young, and the parents are incredibly like left-leaning to the point that like they think if their kid's like a little bit feminine and they're like a boy, it's like, oh, they could be trans. Let's kind of nudge them in this direction and see what happens.
There are parents that do it just to get clicks on TikTok.
The parents influence what happens to the kid a lot, whether they get that kind of like gender affirming surgery, whatever you call it. But at the same time, like they can also block that. But it does depend. Like if you have like a family that wouldn't ever accept it and you feel like you are trans, and that's a horrible situation to be in, you feel trapped. But on the opposite end, you might have someone that, is just, I mean, okay, an example for me, right? Like when I was growing up, when I was a kid, when I was like 10, I played with like, I had a sister. This might have like played into it.
Here
a bit,
we go.
But like,
here we go.
No. Wait. Like I
Had
would
makes
watch...
it sound like past. You said had a sister. Like is she dead now?
No, rest in peace. No, she's still alive.
So you used to dress up in her clothes, you used to play with her toys. What happened?
Nah, I would play like with her toys and stuff and like watch like kind of like girly Barbie films with her and stuff. And I do think to myself like,
Makes sense.
Thank you. And I do think to myself in a sense, like if I had parents that were like, incredibly like progressive, they might have thought, oh my God, like our kid's trans. Should we maybe like, see if they want to go in that direction? I remember as a good example as well. This is a good example I've got, right? So when I was younger as well, this isn't like to do with trans, but it's more just in the sense of like changing your body almost like permanently in a permanent way as a child. So again, I personally believe that anyone obviously should get the freedom of choice. Like obviously, if you're in a household where you feel like you're trans and your parents don't support that, like that's shit, and you need to get that support. But also, I remember as a kid when I was younger, I was convinced, I psyoped myself into thinking I was like a midget, like a manlet, right? And
I actually remember some of that when I first met you.
When I was convinced I was a midget, I'm like 5'11", 6 foot, very, very average height. but I guess it's because I was like always with like tall friends, like college and stuff. But I genuinely convinced myself for about 4 years, like, I'm a midget, I need to get taller. And I was looking up like the kind of foods you eat and stuff like that, which is fine, but like,
was
that's
this from like 14
anything.
to 18?
Yeah, I think so. But then I genuinely wanted to get leg lengthening surgery. Like, I saw it online and it became this like obsession that I had, that like I had to become taller, where like that leg lengthening surgery, that fucks you up for life, because they basically break your legs. They put stints in them to extend, so when the bone grows back, it grows extended, and then you're taller by a couple inches. Great, but like now you could basically do like
you can't run, can't do anything.
I mean, you probably could run, but like the recovery time is like years, and then also you could never run at the capacity that you could run before, because you've got like so many like augmentations and like titanium in your body and stuff. Like, it does, it's an aesthetic change.
You ended up being a tall guy, and did you go so far as looking into getting that surgery?
Oh, yeah, no, I went to my GP for it. I went to my GP and I was like, okay.
Really?
No, I did. Yeah. My parents like were basically laughing at me, and they were just like, oh, yeah, no, if you want to do it, go for it. Because they just expected, they expected the GP to just laugh me out the office.
The GP probably laughed.
No, he did. He literally laughed me out the office. He's like, nah,
you're a moron.
Yeah,
and then he charged you $200 anyway.
Well, no, we're in the UK, so thankfully it's free. But yeah, then like, that there was no like slow change of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't think about this so much. It was just one day it just snapped, and I was like, wait, no, I'm fine.
Just
with my
like
height,
your legs would have if you went through
exactly.
So that's interesting. Do you think that if the child wants it and the parents consent to it, that they should be allowed to get their legs surgically lengthened?
Well, I'm happy that I didn't, because that would have fucked me up for life. No, but that's not answering.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's not answering my question.
Okay, so what was the question again?
Do you think if the parents consent, the child wants the leg lengthening surgery, that they should be able to get it?
What, if the child consents or the parent?
Both, Pyro.
Okay. See, I feel like my personal bias is coming into this, because I'm happy that it didn't happen to me. Because if my parents consented to that, I would have been like fucked for life.
I don't think literally. You could even get that when you're that young, right? Because your growth plates and everything
you'd
is
have
still
to go
growing.
Abroad or something. Like, I looked into it heavily.
Yeah, it would be illegal.
Yeah, this is like before YouTube money as well. And that
you
cost
looked into it heavily. So Pyro, you had vocal dysmorphia and body dysmorphia.
What's vocal dysmorphia?
Remember, you thought your voice wasn't right.
Oh yeah. So guys, we did it.
I did the fake deep voice. That might even be a thing. I don't know. I look back on those videos, like, because they'll come up and recommend it, and I'll cringe, and I'll be like, why the fuck did I do that?
If he wasn't comfortable with the sound of his own voice and had embarrassment from it, he had dysphonia. He had vocal dysmorphia.
It's not something I suffer with anymore. Like, I'm completely comfortable with my height. It's so weird. I swear.
You just wish you were a giant fat planet.
So true. It's reached a point now where, like, it's the same as like my kinks, right? It's like I'll get shamed on stream for my height, because I'll just lie on stream and say I'm 7'2" or something, like a giant. I had one guy on my Reddit, and I don't know if you've seen the backdrop of my videos, the IKEA shelf with all the little holes in it. Someone looked at that IKEA shelf. They did a cross-reference to a picture of me to try and estimate my height, and then they took like 2 feet off. So I ended up being like, I think 2'9" or something. And like, if I was in that mind space that I was like years ago, that would have really fucked with me and made me insecure. But now it's just like, lol, that's funny. I get to react to it and put it on TikTok.
So where did the insecurities stem from? Was this, I mean, you used the terminology manlet, so I'm assuming like you were browsing 4chan at the time.
I think, like I said earlier, it was my mates at school, because I hung around with people in my year that were like really tall, like for their age as well. They were like 16 and they were like, 6'4" and stuff. And I think that might have played like an aspect into it.
But did they bully you and insult you for being shorter than them at any point?
No, never. That's the thing. It might have even been a confidence thing, right? Where it's like, I feel like I didn't have confidence. Maybe if I was, because everyone does that, right? It's like, if I'm taller, I'll probably have more confidence. The whole statistical memes. It's like CEOs are taller than the average person, presidents are taller than the average person, that kind of stuff. How like people that are taller are respected more. Like, I heavily obsessed with this kind of stuff when I was younger. It was really, really unhealthy. I'm happy I came out on the other end, and like I wish I could sit here and say like I got like therapy for it or something, but I didn't. I just kind of woke up one day and I was like, that was retarded. Yeah. You do just snake, because your brain's developing, right? Like, your brain doesn't fully lock in until you're like, what, 25? So I just think I kind of just snapped out of it while my brain was still like mush. And I was like, okay, well, Yeah, that was weird.
Going back to my previous question, and given your bias towards this, would you be okay with a child getting leg lengthening surgery if he consented, she consented, and the parents consented? You only need to answer yes or no.
I can't give a yes or no, though. It's so much more complicated. I know that is the most politician Rishi Sunak thing ever, but nah, it's like, I would get, if my kid wanted that, especially like, okay, removing my bias, I would get so many fucking second opinions, like an insane amount. Because again, I do believe, like, you know, like I have, I'm also a little bit biased as well because I know like a large portion of my fan base are like trans, right? So I feel like, you know, like, and a lot of them have came to me at meet and greets and stuff, and they've came up to me and they've said, you know, like, I told my mom that I'm trans today. You're the second person that I've told, you know, and it's like, I feel like everyone should be given that choice, but there is also that kind of risk of like, you need to make sure that you know what you're getting into, because there are people that have gone trans that have done it and they've totally regretted it. And obviously, like, that is probably a minority of people, and they'll be used for like hit pieces and stuff.
So maybe don't you think that they should wait until they're an adult, wait until adulthood in order to make a life-altering decision like that?
See, yeah, it's so... I do want to agree with that. I really do, but I feel like I'm taking a choice away from someone if I agree to that. Do you know what I mean? This is why I feel like I can't say yes or no to it.
But you're giving like major life decisions to kids now.
I feel there needs to be,
I don't think you can let kids do just about anything that they want, especially with major life decisions, because their brains haven't even fully formed yet.
I feel like...
Like, are you okay with a child consuming alcohol?
No.
There you go.
But I think alcohol is different to, like, you know, life-changing.
So that's okay, but not major life-changing surgery?
No, I think there needs to be, like I said, I think that, yeah, this is one, because again, like, I'm not like well versed in this at all, and I know this is like a fucking minefield to talk about, but I know
it is a
like,
minefield for sure,
people,
but it is, I think it is kind of easy just to give like a yes or no answer to it.
In the UK, I know a lot of people do get that kind of like independent review to like kind of see if I can go trans or I can't go trans, you know, or get the medication to start, you know, the funny woman pills or whatever.
Funny woman pills.
That also depends. that also depends on like who's in government, right? Like it was Conservative, which were right leaning, and now it's Labour that's left leaning. So the people in power there might be more open to it. It's complicated. It's basically like I was about to compare it to like the death penalty or something there, but yeah, I don't know, because I feel like you know like the death penalty, right? Like the reason why that was removed, because you have people that, you know, it was removed in the UK because
the stakes are so high. You want to make sure that you've gone through every last appeal.
Like, yeah, it's a poor example, but like it's one of those things that I think of like, I don't want to take the choice away from someone, and it's not my right to, but also that is a huge commitment. But again, like I know people that, like, you know,
we're not asking you to pass the verdict on this. We're not asking you to sit in the Supreme Court or a court of law.
I thought you said a yes
anything,
or no, though.
Or
like,
be
would
a
you
politician.
personally allow
Well, just
it?
yes or no in your opinion.
If you get like an independent, if it's someone underage, I think there should be at least a kind of period where they might be able to get reviewed or assessed, or just some kind of outside party apart from the family.
Or multiple.
You mean like a doctor?
But again, it's so it's such a you cannot give. I sound like a fucking politician. It's pissing me off. You can't give a yes or no to that, because it's like the parents could be denying the kids what they want, their own children. The parents could be almost pushing onto, because I've seen
a video where it's pushing.
I've seen kids in like conservative households that feel like they're trans, and their parents being so against it, if anything, is making them want to transition more, and they build that hatred towards their parents. But then in countries like, you know, in the Nordics, like Sweden, I've seen people that are so liberal that, like, you know, that the parents will go by, you know, like they, them pronouns and stuff, like gender neutral, and then they'll, like I told you earlier, like I played with like girls' toys and watched girls' films as a kid, you know, like Barbie and shit like that. You know, if I lived in that kind of household from like one of these like Vice documentaries I've saw, my parents would probably assume that I was trans and probably try to kind of nudge me down that. It's such a difficult topic, but I think you should always be given the choice. But I think you need to understand with the choice that there are like heavy like ramifications to it that are life-changing.
Okay, let me get you off this plank for a second and put myself on it and around the circling sharks. Okay, so to use your to
Do you
use
really
your example,
want to do that after last episode?
yeah, I don't care. To use your example here, where you weren't as tall as your mates, and we also have a lot of video record of you not thinking your voice was deep enough. If you were to, like, let's say there was a surgery that could mess with your vocal box and make your voice deeper, and then you found that there was a surgery if you go abroad to sketch your countries where they will break your legs, basically stretch them apart like braces, allow the bone to grow in between, and just over time, you sit in a hotel for a month, and eventually you come out of this with a terrible limp, but you have an extra 6 inches of height. You looked into this. It was something that you could have done to address that. Part of getting approval for a surgery like that should involve talking to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, clinical psychologist, who would say, now, who would interrogate these thoughts you were having and would go, now, Niall, are your friends telling you that you're too short? Are you getting a lot of this data from the world? Are they telling you you're too short? Or do you see your friends who are tall and you wish that you were tall? Are you envious of them? Because you don't need to be envious of them. Like you're valuable in all of these other ways. And they might identify that you were feeling envy. And that you actually, that's a difficult thing for parents to sort out and to say to their kid, like, hey, are you just jealous? Like they're going to be like, what they're going to do is try to affirm just one side of it and be like, you're perfect. And you don't trust them because your parents have always been telling you that you're good, right? You're like, they don't know. Like you reach this age where you don't believe their compliments anymore. But that's why you would need to talk to a professional who would interrogate that. Now, to take that example and then put it back on trans, this is very hot. This is a very hot topic because in Canada, in order to eliminate the basically like camps that religious fundamentalists would send their basically gay kids to convert them, conversion camps. In order to trying to target conversion camps, they made it illegal for medical professionals, psychological professionals, to people in mental health to do anything other than affirmative care when someone comes in and is experiencing distress over gender identity. So they can't do that questioning. So if someone comes in with a self-diagnosis, the equivalent of you saying, hey, I'm too short and my voice is too high based on potential envy, they can't identify that in the case of gender identity stress. They're legally not allowed to. So it's like a rubber stamp. If you go in with the equivalent of my voice is too high, I'm too short, they have to go, we agree. When do you want your surgery?
I mean, the voice one is crazy because he just hadn't completed puberty yet, and his voice hadn't fully broken. So if he's wanting, imagine it. This is a hypothetical situation where he wanted surgery, if this is even possible, to make his voice deeper, when all he has to do is just wait.
The middle ground opinion is unfortunately becoming less and less relevant because, like, if you do it, people will read between the lines and it's like, oh, he said that one sentence that doesn't apply to my extreme belief. Okay, you're on the other side then.
Yeah, just everything's grouped.
The middle ground opinion on gender dysphoria right now would be to not engage with the post at all. It would be, which I think is the reasonable thing, to neither feel the need to celebrate it publicly or to disagree with it, to just accept it. You know what I mean? Because the more acceptance there is, then the less of this feeling of, I didn't feel comfortable coming out to speak my truth, right? Like this idea of coming out, you would just say what you are and people would be okay with it. So then we would see less of the overcompensating where everybody holds it up as like, hooray, you've just shared either a mental disorder, a sexual fetish, or a secret, a dark, like a secret that you weren't comfortable talking about before. Now we're basically acting like you're the hero of the year. This is an overcompensation for the idea that all of these people are afraid to say, like people are trying to be empathetic, but in the end, they may have overdone it to the point where it looked like a path to more admiration on social media or a path to fixing a social situation that wasn't going very well.
It can be used in a sense to avoid another issue, definitely. but I still do think it's important that everyone gets, you know, that freedom of choice. But even then, like, I don't fully agree with what I'm saying, because again, it's like, you know, if you get like a very young child that obviously like can't even think for themselves, and then
I mean, you
parents might
seem
be
very,
pushing.
very undecided on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the thing is, like, I have friends that are trans, I have employees that are trans. Do you see how supercharged it is though now? If you go one grain against the narrative, you'll be labeled as an extreme. It's like, if I said people should be given the choice, if I was like saying, you know, I fully support it, I'd probably be labeled as like a, you know, pedo groomer sympathizer, right? But then if I go on the other end and I say maybe, you know, people should like wait and assess, or maybe get like or you know, just see what happens, see if your brain, there's any changes in your brain, like what happened with me, then, you know, I'll probably instantly be labeled as like a disgusting turf transphobe.
Well, I don't think you would be a pedo sympathizer, because it's got nothing to do with the sexual attraction to children.
Oh no, but you've seen the whole narrative like on Twitter right now, like especially with the advertisement stuff. Like, I've seen so many trans people that have came out and said like she has basically set the respect to trans people to like before the Big Bang. There's obviously a lot of people out there that have had contempt for trans people for a very long time, and they've now been able to let that loose on anyone and everyone that is trans. Like, what Ava did is terrible. I'm not excusing it at all.
And I agree with that. I think that is the case. But then you've also got the case of other trans people defending Kris purely because they are trans.
I've never seen, I'll be honest, I've never seen a single person do that. I'm not saying you're lying, I just haven't. The only person I've seen defend Ava was one of her mates or something, that lava guy. He's been like valiantly like just defending her constantly on like all fronts.
I think there was a whole subreddit, no surprise there, it's Reddit, that was trying to defend Kris purely based on the fact that they're trans.
I think we talked about this a little bit before the call, but it seems unfortunate that we're lumping all of these different types of people, all these different personality types together into a movement or into a group. Like when LGBTQ plus, every letter is being combined into this one movement, then you have someone like Kris, who has, according to his own family, according to a story that he talked about on the podcast with Anthony Padilla, that his sister, according to Drama Alert, his sister came out and confirmed and said that he came out to her as having been turned on by wearing her clothes, and that she called him a narcissist and says that he basically has autogynephilia. Now that term, obviously, this is very divisive, because some people say, well, why should you label gender dysphoria, people with gender dysphoria, as having a paraphilia? Why are we bringing up at all that they would call it a sexual disorder, when really the underlying condition is that they're uncomfortable with their gender identity? So of course, when they have sexual thoughts, they would be having thoughts as the opposite sex. Transvestitism involves clothing in the definition, and then autogynephilia does not necessarily involve clothing. It's just thinking of yourself as the opposite sex turns you on. Now, Kris, according to his sister, and according to what sounds like his own testimony, had sexual fantasies of himself. Like, maybe this was a fetish. This was a diagnosable fetish, right? Like, this was autogynephilia. And so when you don't want to lump that in with gender dysphoria, because there are people who it's not a fetish to them, who, like, they would not be turned on by the thought of wearing their sister's clothes, right? Like, it would not involve a sexual thing in that moment. It would be like, oh, this feels right. It wouldn't be, this is really hot and I want to be perceived as a female and then have sex with a man, right? Like, it's just, that's not what they would be. That's not the same thing, right? I think lumping all of these things together and then defending the people who have the strong, like, sexual interest in it, just the same as the people who are dysphoric, and thinking that it's the same, I think in the end it kind of does a disservice not only to the community but in educating the public, because then you have someone like Kris who is revealed to basically be degenerate, and then, like, it reflects on everybody else who just has dysphoria. You know, it's like they're not all the same. and people will think that they are when a bad example comes out who has a completely different disorder. You know, like all trans people are obviously not pedophiles. The people who have autogynephilia and who are wearing no underwear underneath a dress and crossing their legs reading a book to children might be pedophiles, right? If that is what they want to do on a Saturday afternoon. Now, that is not the average gender dysphoric person. And the average trans person knows that the drag queens are not them. Like that's a different category of person. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of normies don't know the difference between this. If you're a normie editor and you're trying to throw together a video of pride, right? Like you're trying to make, like YouTube did for, we love pride, we celebrate pride. So they're trying to cut together a video to show that. They're going to lean so heavy on the cross-dressing because it's the most colorful thing. You know, it's like human peacocks. There's feathers, there's whatever. It's the most visually punch in the face thing. Normal looking gay guys who have a kid, like they're not going to look as visually exciting as that. So there's an overrepresentation of drag in the visuals for LGBTQ, and drag has a lot of sexual aspects to it. And I think normies are getting drag confused with gender dysphoria. And a lot of people who are into drag will tell you that they are not trans. They're like, no, I just do this on the weekends. It's something I like to do. It's a fetish for them. Like Pyro dressing up and experimenting in different, in his sister's clothes.
No, he never dressed up in his sister's clothes. He played with her toys.
Played with her toys. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Let me completely rephrase that.
I think you probably got confused because I have dressed up as a woman, like, you know, on Instagram and
sorry.
stuff.
Let me not put that out there.
Yeah,
Pyro playing with his sister's toys did not have a sexual aspect to it, right? Someone dressing up in the opposite clothes doesn't necessarily have a sexual aspect to it. For some people, it really does, and they would not even say that they are trans. So yeah, it's complicated, and we're pointing out all of the basically exceptions to the rule, and there are so many exceptions to the rule, and that's why I think it does a disservice to lump it all together, because then when one thing has a massive like scandal that makes a lot more sense to that personality type, everybody else unfortunately gets painted with that brush.
If you think about it, like when you're that young, when you're like 10 or something, like your brain is just like, it's an open canvas, right? Like you can be influenced by like anything, like your parents, what you see. I mean, this is definitely why I think there's going to be a huge amount of people that are, you know, going to end up becoming like LGBTQ, because like internet access is getting like younger and younger and younger. You know, because I remember like when I was growing up, it was like the family PC in the house that everyone used. You had like allotted hours and stuff. Sometimes they'd have like a mate round and we played. Did you look up,
like when you were 12, did you also look up like big boobies on Google? Like, were you
I don't like, remember. I probably didn't.
Really?
And if I did, I'd probably be fucking normal. So I wish I did that. I'd probably actually be normal.
You're 100% right about the suggestibility thing. If you say to a kid of the age of 3, hey, there's a bunch of elephants in the closet, don't open the closet, they will believe you and think there's elephants in the closet. For maybe the rest of their life, they'll think there's elephants in closets.
That's literally the To Be Honest server. You can tell them anything, say anything, and they'll believe it. No proof is required.
What was the last lie? We had like 2 good ones.
Oh, I said Nerd City was actually born a woman, and some people believed it.
You could lie about anything. It's so good.
We said that I'm Alex jacked it to Baby Yoda, and they believed it. Cut a little hole into a Baby Yoda plushie and he fucked it. And people believed it.
And an hour earlier, you told them you were the best man at Keemstar's wedding.
Yep.
And they also
right.
fell
that
for
was the one.
And we immediately followed it with the I'm Alex jacked up to Baby Yoda.
So what you're suggesting is the average mental age of people in our Discord is about, what did I say?
It's about 9.
3 to 5.
Oh yeah, no, if you're on about mental age, yeah, actually 2.
Average IQ is like 50 in there.
Oh no, I was going to say, surely we round them all up, right? This would be a great way to get people to join. Like we could do like a monthly IQ test and then we could actually give a role to whoever's the smartest and whoever's the most stupid.
I think Pyro gave a very good story there because he took it out of the trans issue and he talked about a dysphoria that he had that we all can see he was wrong about, you know, and he agrees he was wrong about, and he's glad that he didn't cripple himself by trying to become taller. And we all could see, because he was a child star, that he did this in public. We could see that he dropped his voice and then later he stopped doing it and explained why he did it. Like, there's evidence of this. We know that's a true story.
I think that height obsession actually did start like just when I started doing YouTube as well. So there might be a correlation there.
You unlocked a memory, because I remember you always complaining about, like, I'd only known you for like a couple months and you were always complaining. I was like, how old are you? And you're like, oh, 5'11" or 5'10" or however tall you are. I was like, what? That's literally average height. And I think it's because your mates were 6'4" or 6'2" that you became insecure, like most teenagers would. But it was one of the funny things I remember you just endlessly going on about, and I was like, what is this guy's deal?
It's so weird.
It's something that I think the more mature you've gotten, Pyro, you do less of this, right? You do less of measuring yourself against other people.
Oh, I don't know.
You know that when you do that, it's like it's a spiral.
In the height aspect, yeah. In the height aspect, I fully stopped that.
What I was going to transition that to, pun intended, depending on Pyro's answer, though he never really actually gave an answer, was if he said no to a child getting the leg lengthening surgery he was talking about, then would he also say no to a child getting surgery to change their gender or taking hormones to change their gender if the parents approved of it? But I guess if he's not going to answer the leg lengthening one, then I don't think he's going to answer that one either.
Oh wait, did you phrase that for the leg lengthening, not the transitioning to me?
Yeah, for the leg lengthening.
Oh well, I think they should definitely see a therapist or psychiatrist or something. Definitely, to get into their heads, because if I had that, then I would have realized that I didn't need it.
But that still was not my question. My question was, do you think if you consent and your parents consent to the leg lengthening surgery that you should be able to get it using those parameters?
No, but like from my own experience, no, because like that would have ended terribly for me, and I'm happy I didn't do it. But that's me as an example.
So therefore, do you think that children, if they want it and their parents consent to it, should be able to get gender-affirming surgery?
Sneako, is that you? I'm debating Sneako right now. I mean, even saying no there, I feel like I'm being done in a bit of a gotcha moment here. I feel like again.
It's not a gotcha at all. Just give your genuine, honest opinion. Yes or no?
I can't say. Genuinely. It's every situation.
Well, that's why I was saying I thought that he handled that in a great way by telling that dysphoria question. That's why I was grateful he did that, because it is very tricky for him to address it head on. It's like impossible.
Let me say this real quick, and then I'll shut up. But like, the reason why I'm not instantly saying no, you should wait, is because I know that there are people that have like literally not even viewers, yeah, but like I've had people that have literally came to me in meet and greets. Like, they've met me and they've literally told me, like, you know, like I said earlier, it's like, you know, I've literally just came out trans to my mum today. You're the second person that I've told. And I feel like I've got this like fucking secret information from someone. It's like, holy shit. And then to sit here and then, you know, be like, no, you should wait until your brain fully forms, I think. And then you'll know what to do. I just feel that, like, for someone that isn't trans myself, I just think it's incredibly entitled of me to basically sit there and say, no, you should wait. Because again, every situation's different. You might, I'm just repeating myself, you know, it's like you might have the left-leaning parents that put it on the kid, and the kid might, you know, not even want it because they're so young and they just play with girl shit like I did. Or you might have the person that is like, you know, they genuinely might think that they're trans with, like, you know, people that they've hung out with online or like through experiences or just how they feel with general body dysmorphia. They look at women, they feel more comfortable as opposed to, you know, men if they grow up as a boy. But then they might have the conservative parents that won't allow them to do that. And then that creates that resentment where they probably just want to transition even more, and they feel like even more uncomfortable with their own body, and that hatred of not even being able to be given a choice. I really do wish I could say yes or no. I really do. But like, you just can't with one of those. You really can't, because every situation's different.
I don't agree that you just can't, but I accept your answer.
All right, that's fair.
Jay, what about you?
What are you talking about specifically? Because I feel like grouping it is kind of like, you need to be a bit more nuanced. Like, so with the Sneako and Critikal debate, you know, Sneako went straight for the are you okay with kids chopping their cocks off? Critikal decided to say yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely not phrasing it like that. Do you want me to give the question again for context?
Then he walked it back, saying he would wait for them to be 18, but he was okay with the other stuff. So
Is that what Charlie said?
I'm asking more like, are you talking about gender reaffirming care or gender reaffirming surgery?
Gender affirming surgery was the original, but let's apply both to this.
Because I would think for the surgery, for doing irreparable, change to your body, you should definitely wait till you're 18 for anything.
Puberty blockers they're lying about those things being reversible.
Well, I don't know enough about them. I've heard taking E is reversible and won't actually do long-term damage. So I don't know enough about to have an opinion on it. But if it's reversible, I think it's fine for you to start. Probably not very young, obviously, but...
So what age?
No, you can't give an age. That's fucked. That's really unfair.
I mean, I assume after you start puberty, right?
Well, the point of a puberty blocker is to block puberty. So taking it after you've already gone through puberty.
Because I'm thinking more on the terms,
pointless.
when we're growing up, like under 16 and stuff, you've got a lot of girls taking contraception pills, which do a lot of hormonal changes and can screw your body up as well. So it's kind of like, if you're allowed to take those, how different is taking the other stuff that's also messing with your hormones? So, I mean, I guess my take is, if it's irreversible, you should wait till you're 18. That's my take on it.
Okay.
There's conflicting research on that so far. Some of it is indicating that it's reversible to an extent, and then other research is showing that you'll never reach the full growth potential that you would have had you not interrupted puberty.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking medication, you're taking significant drugs, so it's definitely doing something. To the effect of that, it's depending on multiple variables here, how long you're taking them, etc. But it's certainly doing something, and something significant.
It's like, to bring it back to the pyro leg length thing, surgery. Like, I think any doctor, his doctor laughed him out the office. It's like, I think something that crazy at that early of an age, you got to be older to do. So
you got to be an adult, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to be an adult.
Depending on what you classify as an adult.
To do something that is irreversible to your body. That's my take.
And you're classifying an adult as 18.
Over 18.
Over 18.
I can't really put a specific number, because I was obviously more mature when I was 21 than I was 18. But
that's why I think you become an adult at 20 now. Instead of 18, 50, 60 years ago, I think the age of consent should be 20, not 18. So I think that then therefore applies to this gender reaffirming surgery as well. I think you should be at least 20. I mean, that's my personal opinion on it.
I just think you should be a legal adult to make a decision that is that impactful on your entire life and the rest of your life.
Okay. Nerd, your answer?
Well,
they
Pyro,
give me pitchforks.
I'm backloaded with questions I wanted to ask. Pyro, when you went to the doctor, he probably didn't literally laugh at you, but he would have probably he would have measured your height and showed you that statistically you were within the normal range, or that maybe even you were taller than your peers, right? Did that happen?
He laughed at me and he threw a custard pie at my face. So he didn't do any of that. He basically just... I think another good segue as well, what you mentioned there is, he was a GP. GPs in the UK are incredibly overworked. They see everyone about a little bit of everything. He obviously just told me, no, you're normal height. And then I kind of don't remember too much. I remember him saying something like, if you feel the same way in a fair few years, you could look into it. But then I think he was basically trying to tell me all the reasons not to. Obviously, he mentioned all the debilitating side effects, being in bed for months and then, walking on crutches, and then you'll never be able to basically run or be at the athletic peak that you are before the leg surgery. Mm-hmm.
I take it he didn't literally laugh you out the office.
No.
Called him a slur.
No, he threw.
Get out.
I think fairly good take. I mean, fairly good opinion.
Yeah,
a doctor worth his
very
salt.
good. Yeah, definitely. Mm. And I think as well, I do almost think if you come to decisions like that, though, where you're kind of on the fence and not sure, it's almost like you need an independent review. But again, that gets into the whole kind of healthcare stuff. And I know in the UK, I know so many people in the UK that are trans, and healthcare healthcare in the UK is an actual meme. Because it's free, it's just so dog shit. I got a dog bite. My dog bit me once because he's like really old. He's almost got like a bit of dementia. He didn't like recognize who I was, and he bit me. And then my parents said to me, okay, you should probably go get like a tetanus jab. Like, he's been jabbed and stuff, but that's like a really deep wound. And I didn't even think of like getting a jab, but I was like, okay, sure. And then I went to the doctors, and I was waiting like 9 hours, I think, in a waiting room just to get.
Wait, so it's fully free for you guys? You don't pay anything?
No, nothing at all. Completely free.
So you just paid zero, just nothing.
Yeah, but it's not worth it if you're gonna wait like a day.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because
Fuck
you gotta wait.
Like, I'd rather just pay like 20 quid, like just to get the jab and stuff. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why there's so much strain on the NHS and stuff. But yeah, even then, it's like, you know, I feel like people should get like independently assessed if they feel like they're on the fence about going trans. Like, maybe if they're trans and they're like, you know, under 20 and they still feel like they should, maybe then like there could be like an independent inquiry or something. But then it's like, you know, who does the inquiry?
You think that should apply to adults as well? I mean, we were talking about kids here,
possibly,
but
again, that opens up another impossible debate, because it's like, who is the person that makes that decision? You don't know them. What's their biases? You know, they might be, you know, they might have a fucking kid that's trans and fucking hate them, like Elon Musk, right? And they're just sitting there like denying everyone. Or then you might have someone that's like incredibly pro-trans to the point that they let everyone through without proper assessment. Like, that's, you're then taking the choice into a stranger.
Okay, when you're saying assessment, you're saying that the doctor has a vote and he can give the verdict of whether or not you're allowed this surgery or not? Or are you saying assessment in the terms of like he's going to give you the pros and cons, or just the cons and he's going to advise against it, but ultimately it's your decision? Is it A or B?
I was originally thinking A, and that's why I think it was such a bad idea. But B is like, I think because I do think a lot of people that jump into it, they might not fully understand that it is like life-changing. Like, even if you fully transition and then you go back, you'd never be back to how you were when you were the original gender. It is life-changing.
I mean, for anything that big, you should be getting an opinion from multiple sources. And
also, I'm literally not trans, so I feel like, you know, to speak on other people's behalf is really fucked.
Despite popular opinion, yeah.
Despite popular opinion, yeah. I dressed up as a woman a couple times. I'm trans.
A lot of what is passing as transphobia right now is basically coming from adults who are taking that out of the trans issue. You know, like, even look at Sneako, the way that he tried to corner Critikal on this is he brought up marriage, and he personalizes it, and he goes, imagine you're 16 years old, and there's a 21-year-old woman who wants to marry you, and you're into it and she's into it. Would you want someone telling you no? Right? And okay, if you think about it in terms of you're a 16-year-old, when you're 16, when you're in high school, you think you know what you're doing. You think that the relationships you're in are going to last forever, and you could imagine maybe getting married. Some people, when they're that young, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to marry my high school sweetheart. And as an adult, you look back on that period and you're like, what a moron I was. Of course, I'm so glad I didn't make a permanent decision like that. I'm glad that I didn't marry my high school sweetheart, right? Like, I needed to meet more people and see the world and figure out what career I would have and what city I wanted to live in. I'm so glad I didn't settle down then, a lot of people think. So they're looking back on their childhood with the wisdom of going, I didn't know. There's no way I would have known about who I wanted to date for the rest of my life, about what tattoos I should have all over my body, about what band I was going to like forever. My tastes have changed. My idea of who I am has changed. They're coming from that experience, and they're going, it must be the same for this increased amount of gender dysphoria, of discomfort in people's bodies. They're like, look, you're going to get through that. You know, I didn't like my body either when I looked in the mirror, and then now it's not such a big deal, you know. And it's the same as your story of the legs.
You mentioned tattoos there, and that's an interesting example, because I actually, when I was a kid, wanted to get a tattoo, and my parents said no, and of course I did not get a tattoo.
It's a huge swastika. It's on his back. I've seen it.
I never actually got it. I'm thankful I did not get it. I'm thankful that my parents did not allow me to get it. It was like a fleeting phase. I saw it in like some movie and I thought it was cool, and I wanted to get the tattoo, toaster. And of course they said no. And I think even if we went to the tattoo parlor, I don't think that the tattooist is going to tattoo a kid with a swastika. It was not a swastika that I wanted. I knew.
Imagine. That's the only reason your parents objected.
The film he saw, by the way, was American History X, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, don't most tattoo shops have a age limit, or how do they work?
That's 16, usually.
I thought that they did.
16,
I've never been to a
okay.
tattooist parlor, but I assumed that they did.
And tribal
yeah.
tattoos went completely out of fashion. They're kind of coming back now a little bit ironically or in a retro way, but that was a fad, and then there was like a
I don't
good...
think I've ever been good on a white guy. I don't think I've ever seen a white guy with a tribal tattoo and be like, that looks cool.
Yeah. There was a good 15 years of that being unacceptable. Yeah.
So the point of this, take a tattoo, something that's very minor by comparison to life-altering surgery. Why would some people have a problem with a child getting a tattoo and not with a life-altering surgery?
Yeah, you can still get it removed.
Because I feel like a tattoo is an aesthetic thing, right? But then with transitioning, that's quality of life.
Yeah, mental well-being. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you feel like you're trapped in the wrong body, like that, I could like you're in your own body every day. Like, you know, people that like imagine like, you know, you look at yourself in the mirror, maybe you put on a bit of weight and it's like, that fucking sucks. But like, yeah, if you feel like you're trapped in the wrong body like every day and all you see is your own body to the point you don't even want to look at yourself in the mirror, that would be my own personal hell. I could not imagine anything worse because you can't get away from that. It's not like it's a bad friend or something.
The potential for regret based off of my experience with looking back on when I was under 18 and how much I would not want any version of myself under 18 to have been making more permanent decisions for me than it already had access to. You know, I don't want that person to have made all the deals for my future or who have picked my identity or anything like that. And that's me, you know, like I don't trust that version of myself to have made all the decisions for me right now.
At 18 years of age, would you have trusted yourself to make those decisions?
I think we have to, because there are so many rules in society that are around 18, you know, there's 21 is alcohol.
Isn't it just America has the 21 thing?
That's usually American age, right? Because it's 18 for stuff in the UK, like, you know, drinking.
18, you can do military.
Yeah, that one's a crazy one. Join the military at 18, but you can't drink alcohol until 21. That one is brain dead.
America.
Is that in America?
That's
I
America.
remember boarding like flights in America and they did this like, you guys prioritize the military so much, it's crazy. Like I know like half your tax goes to them, but I remember like, you know when you board a plane and they always
Let's
call
kick up every debate possible.
True.
In this
You know how they this is just a little side quest thing, but like, you know how they when you get on a flight they call like all the rich people up first, like first class and that, and then they do business and then they do economy,
Zone 1.
you know.
Yeah.
But like they called up like servicemen first on all my American flights. Like they got priority like above everyone else.
18 seems to be the standard, the median average of what most people say classifies an adult. I personally say it's 2 years more. It would be 20 given the cultural, societal impacts along with the biological impacts. I would personally say 20 these days, but that's more of a personal opinion. Most people would say 18. 18 is still like a teenager to me. Maybe not a child, but like a teenager. Especially when you start thinking about the age in which the brain fully develops, that prefrontal cortex, which is around 25, I believe. That's the average. So there's a pretty good argument to be made that if you only consider the biological factors, that you actually become officially an adult at the age of 25 or around the age of 25. Now, if you include the social and cultural factors, life experience, it's definitely going to be more than 18 these days, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think ideally you probably don't even start thinking about this until you're 18 and you know what kind of body you're really going to grow into and just to be sure what your actual sexual identity is. Because I don't think you've completely figured that out for sure until you've graduated school, till you're 18 to 21, something like that. And maybe it probably would be for the best if you don't schedule a surgery until you're 21, because I'm just thinking about my own, what version of myself would I trust to make a decision like that? I probably think in my 20s at the earliest.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't want 18 or 19 having decided those things because you haven't graduated university yet at that point. You know, like you don't know anything.
I think before, and we're going back 50, 60 years, perhaps even more at this point, maybe 18 was where you could be, you know, cognitively, socially mentally developed enough to make some of the legal decisions that have been put in place today. But I think at this point in time, people mentally are degraded. And I think they're maturing far later, not physically, but mentally.
I was definitely a late bloomer. Like, I think me growing up so much online, because I feel like it's interesting because I feel like my sister is only 3 years younger than me, but she's like completely normie. Not as an insult. Like, sometimes I do think to myself, like, shit, like, if I, in my teenage years and stuff, if I wasn't like just gaming indoors all the time, and actually, it was like spending time. Yeah, I feel like, like my sister is almost like we get on really, really well. Like, I've got a great relationship with her, but she is the opposite in the sense of like she's just completely normie because she didn't spend a lot of time online. Like, yeah, she's a woman. She's like, I shop with my phone, blah blah blah. She's got like.
And you swear to God that she exists. This isn't like a Tyler Durden scenario where this. It's just someone who you are at
I met
night.
her, but it was actually like Pyro.
I met her in a dream. She came to me in a
Pyro would go into another room.
Have we seen them in the same room at the same time?
No, there's been. I bought her on stream once, and then half the chat was like, "Isn't that just you with a wig on?" What the fuck?
Literally you were just using AI.
Split screen.
Oh yeah, Jay met her as well.
But never at the same time. Pyro was always in another room.
Just suddenly comes out just with a wig on, slightly shorter.
Just seed the conspiracy theory.
But yeah, I do think like people growing up online is going to make a different generation. I think it's like, it can almost like it's definitely going to socially stunt people for sure. Like, I feel like my sister,
I think is the point.
Yeah, a late bloomer in that sense.
Mature,
and I always thought that was like kind of a buzzword, meme word, but yeah, no, I genuinely do believe in that. But I do think that was on set because I didn't build that many social connections as a kid. I was just online all the fucking time.
Would you say definitively that the internet was a considerable factor in what rotted your brain?
Oh, definitely. I'd be normal without that. But if I was normal, I wouldn't be doing YouTube and I wouldn't be able to employ my whole family and support them. So it's kind of like a double. There is a positive. It's not all a net negative, probably just mostly.
So on the back of that, what age do you guys believe children or just people in general should be allowed to access the internet in the capacity that most people are accessing the internet right
105. 105.
I heard Nerd laugh. Do you have an answer to this?
Oh man,
he's only gave you the most career-ending question of all time, by the way. Like,
you reckon?
I mean, you do know how many people fucking lie about their age anyway, right? Like going on to like Pornhub and shit like that. Like everyone fucking lies about their age.
When we were talking about the inappropriate nature of J-Station content for the audience that he intended it for, right? He was working in a genre that shouldn't exist, which was horror content, R-rated horror content for children. Target age 6 or 8 to 12. So it was not appropriate for them. The concept, their minds were not ready to be scared like that. We were saying that even though when you were a kid, you could, if you really tried to, you could get your hands on horror movies, and like everybody did. It's like we watched R-rated movies when we were younger. And whether we turned out okay or not, it's like whatever. But the fact that you knew that it had a rating and that it wasn't meant for you, that it wasn't handed to you as like, hey, here's the new Disney thing. You can watch this while I'm going to the store. We were not given Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th and told like, here's the new movie for you. And if we had been, if the algorithm had served that to us, like I think that would have been that would have boded very poorly for our brains that would have developed. Like we had to know that it was forbidden, even though we were consuming it just the same, knowing that it was that there was something off about it, that there was like some forbidden nature to it or sin attached to it or like crimes, that we were going to see things that weren't right. That helped us put it in a box in our mind where we were like, okay, that's not the ideal day, right? This isn't how we should act towards people. We shouldn't be, expecting scenarios like this. So I think that having some sort of sandboxed internet access for kids probably is a good idea, even if there's workarounds and we can think of ways like, oh, well, they could just use the image tab. Like they'll find ways to do it. But the fact that there would be bumper lanes or a sandbox around it, something telling them like, hey, outside of this area is not safe. I think that's important for the development of your ethics and your sense of morality. You have to know that everything in here is safe and won't hurt me, and everything out here might. I think having access to all of it, have this big open world internet for any age, is very dangerous for that reason.
Yeah, because companies don't care about like your kid's safety. They'll only care if lawmakers then bring the hammer down. It's like, oh, this has happened. Because it does, like brave statement incoming, but it does just always revolve around profits. And, that's not a concern for profits. They just want to bring in as many people as possible. Whether it's like on TikTok or on YouTube Shorts or just watching videos, like they'll always show you like more and more content to keep you engaged.
Well, if you're in a sandboxed version of the internet and you want to get around it, then you need ExpressVPN!
Okay, good transition.
Going online without ExpressVPN is like driving without car insurance. You might be a great driver, but with all the crazy people on the road these days, why would you take that risk? Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, etc., your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data, passwords, bank logins, credit card details, etc. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. A smart 12-year-old could do it, Pyro. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. So why is ExpressVPN the best VPN? Well, it's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's so easy to use. Just fire up the app and click one button to get protected. Works on all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more. I'm feeling sick. So you can stay secure on the go. It's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. I use ExpressVPN to protect myself from predators. It's very important that I do this whilst playing Roblox and games of this nature, because there are many predators out there. There are some in this call. So secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/TBH. That's expressvpn.com/TBH. And you can get an extra 3 months absolutely free with expressvpn.com/TBH. Oh, there was one more thing. Because we talked about Moist Critical's side of things, we never mentioned Sneako's age of consent. Or did we?
No, barely.
Yeah, so basically there was this big online debate between Critikal, infamous slop YouTuber, and Sneako, infamous grifter, who always takes the most unpopular opinion and runs with it because he knows it'll get clicks.
So you needed to
Well, both
say.
of them made fucking retarded points. We've already covered the Critikal version of events. I think we can all agree we're all on the same page. We don't even need to go into it. That Sneako's point of a 22-year-old adult marrying or having some sexual relations with a 15, even though he specifically said he would not do that himself based on the fact he does not want to have sex before marriage. I think we can all agree, all four of us collectively, that that is fucked and Sneako is a fucking weird freak. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very brave statement. Yes.
He's gone on record to just say stuff like he doesn't believe in the age of consent as when they're mature enough. It's like, okay.
I mean, it has to be
What?
rage bait, right? Like, it does reach a point where it's
No,
just
no.
engagement bait.
It's because he doesn't want to piss off an area of his audience as well.
Both were pandering to their particular audiences for basically the same reason.
Oh, but just to be clear, because I only saw one clip of that on the Drama Alert Twitter, It was where he used the example of him being 16, marrying a 21-year-old adult female, and then people in the replies to that were saying that he just mask slipped and showed that he's a pedo.
A pedo sympathizer. Let's call it
I
that.
wouldn't
don't
say
understand.
Sneako is a pedo.
I guess I could say, all right, so if that wasn't he making that argument to try to corner Charlie on the fact that because that is against the law, also so should
No, he actually
HRT
believes that though as well.
But he believes that actually the consent should be at 16 for marriage.
He believes, and I'm summarizing here, he believes that as long as the child has gone through puberty and the parents consent to the marriage, then an adult can marry a child and have sexual intercourse with them. Based on that logic, a 50-year-old man could potentially ethically marry and fuck a 12-year-old girl just because her parents said she could, and Sneako would be perfectly okay with this, and he would not at all consider that man, that person, to be a pedophile.
Oh, God. So basically him and Critikal had two extreme opinions.
Yep. Because there's a clip of...
This is the thing, though, right? Because you mentioned about Critikal with the, believing that any age is okay for the child to get, the gender stuff, right? As long as the parents consent and they all consent. That's what he said, right? I'm not butchering that. Yeah, didn't you then say that he actually took that back and then said 18 later?
Yeah, he said he thought when Sneako asked him that specific question about the cutting genitals off that he was speaking in hyperbole, and that's why his answer was the way it was.
Again, this just shows, because that's not the part, the bit where Charlie took it back, that's not the bit that's clipped. It's only that short instance. Like, I swear, when this shit goes fucking viral, there's just always so much context missing.
No, there isn't. There isn't any context missing. Charlie's opinion was that as long as the parents consent, the kid can get gender-affirming surgery.
Oh, but he took it back though and said 18 in the
No, he didn't.
in the stream. If what Jay said is correct.
Oh, in the same stream, he clarified then.
So if he's walked it back, and I haven't seen him walk it back, but if he has walked it back, it's not because the question was hyperbolic.
Yeah.
It's not because he misunderstood the question. It's really because of the backlash. And it's fine. Like, who cares? So be it.
Yeah, he was put on the spot, and he signaled an extreme, something that is, I think, outside of the norm.
I honestly believe his clip where he thinks, because Sneako is the type to just jump to the most extreme version of the politics the other person represents.
No, I'm sorry, you watch the stream, you watch the debate, it's not hyperbole, and there's no way to interpret it as that.
Well, that's how Sneako speaks, though.
Yeah, but not in this particular question. There's no way.
Yeah, like jumping straight to genital mutilation and stuff, just that kind of aggressive verbiage and stuff, almost just to kind of spark as much of a reaction and to get Charlie in that panic state of these are really big, heavy words. Are you going to agree with them or not? This is the example I'm giving. It's purposely structured. I mean, I personally think if he was doing this in a podcast with his mates in a more relaxed environment like we're doing now, he'd probably have an opinion similar to what I've said earlier, where it was more balanced.
But you didn't really give an answer.
The problem with this pair of clips is the two of them exposed each other's hypocrisy.
That is exactly the case. It's a double standard on both sides.
Yikes.
But let's look at where this all stemmed from, where this debate stemmed from, and this was from the recent allegations, now proven, in my opinion, against Chris Tyson. It started with his involvement with Shadman commissioning degenerate art from him. It wasn't pedo art, although Shadman is known for doing that. He drew Keemstar's underage daughter, who was, I believe, 7 at the time. He drew Lieutenant Corbis, who Pyrocynical has some involvement with, not in any kind of nefarious capacity.
That sounds
but he did
so
promote
bad
her
the
on
way
his YouTube.
you said that.
I'm trying to clarify
Holy
it was not in
shit.
any nefarious capacity, and you just kind of
Jesus.
promoted her and shouted out on a stream and made a video about it.
Yeah, she was a commentary channel that was way younger than everyone else, and I gave her a shout out, and then she blew up after that. And Reddit really took a liking to her, because I guess she was just literally 10 and just talking shit online. There was kind of a novelty to it, I guess.
Reddit took a liking to her because Reddit and child involved, so that makes sense.
Reddit moment, tips Fedora, milady.
Did any of you guys watch that Sunny V2 video on the Chris Tyson situation?
It was a while ago since we talked about this, but I seem to remember that the video had absolutely nothing to do with any kind of pedo allegation.
Okay.
So the video is titled, Why Kris Will Soon Be a Nightmare for Mr. Beast. And okay, yeah, that turned out to be 100% true, but not for any of the reasons he originally stated for.
Yeah, only the title, yeah.
I was going to say, I think I saw on Twitter, again, using Twitter as a reference, Lamau, but the narrative seemed to be that, yeah, like, none of the points were basically the same. It was more just about the divorce and stuff and how he has a role in his kid's life.
Bringing the negative attention to the brand, so...
Yeah.
I guess that part was true.
One of the smoking guns here for Chris Tyson being a pedophile, or at least being involved in that world, was his involvement with Shadbase, also known as Shadman, who has drawn these very strange lolly pedo drawings of, in some cases, real-life children, who I called out back in 2016 now, or was it 2016?
It was insane when I saw the date on that. I didn't even remember.
And didn't you say as well that, like, I'm not sure if you want to put this in, but like after you called him out, he basically did the equivalent of revenge art against you?
That's right, yeah. He certainly wasn't coming across that way in the stream when I confronted him. In fact, he was sucking my dick. Let's call it that.
Yeah, he was
was
very
watching it
but later on, due to
instantly.
the flack, I'm assuming from his particular fan base and all calling him a coward that bent the knee, etc., he decided to draw a lewd picture of Lieutenant Corbis, who I believe had my profile image of the clown on her panties. Maybe it wasn't even on her panties. It was so long ago, but that's what he drew. He certainly tried to include me in that way as a kind of weird little revenge.
Oh, God.
Fucking hell.
How exactly does anyone defend that? At the time or now?
Did people defend that?
Can't remember with this particular one. I didn't see anyone defending that, but they certainly defended it when Keemstar's daughter was drawn. And I remember specifically I'm Alex did defend it. I'm 90% sure Elvis the Alien did too. I'm not 100% on that because it was so long ago. But I'm Alex.
What type of arguments were they making to defend this?
I think
Yeah,
just
I
the
could
free
not imagine
speech
anyone.
argument was the only argument you can make about that, right? Which is still like, why are you arguing that?
They tried to make it this defense any way they could because Keemstar was involved and everyone hated Keemstar. And that's what they were trying to do.
I gotcha.
So what I learned this week was the Daphne Keane stuff where he drew a child actor from the Logan movie, Wolverine movie, and then that was actually what got his site taken down because of her lawyers reaching out because he'd drawn a real-life child. The crazy part to me is this all happened apparently in 2016 to 2017. Shadbase blew up, as an edgelord degenerate in like 2017 to 2020. So I'm surprised that he managed to blow up without many people knowing this because like I didn't know this.
So, I mean, there has been somewhat of a witch hunt now for anyone who had any kind of involvement with Shadman, and there's this long list of YouTubers and personalities involved, of which Dolan Dark is at the top of the list, somewhat very
top.
unfairly.
Actually,
very
number one
top.
target. Despite the fact, by the way, that there's been people in that list that have literally actively defended Shadman. Like, he gets put at the top of the list for, like, a couple of replies of, like, Mark Zuckerberg art where he says Zuck or something like that.
So for context, so there was a Twitter thread made of any creator's interaction with Shadbase, and I happened to be someone who had interacted with him on Twitter with replies. So the Reddit thread that was made was like, these are everyone associated with Shadbase, and then they grouped everyone together in the list. Like, so they said this is everyone that has defended or commented on Shadbase, and it just got spun as this is a list of Shadbase defenders associates. And I, for some reason, because I was first in the Twitter thread, am top of this Reddit list. So I've had like multiple tens of 20s of comments saying I'm a pedo. I've had multiple comments asking me why I was friends with him, why did I work with him, why did I defend him, and like none of this is true. Just clearing that up.
What was your involvement with Shadbase? Why are you on this list?
If you look at the actual Twitter thread of the replies the replies, I don't think a lot of people realize, because this was 7 years ago now, right? Is that he was so popular in the meme sphere. People knew him as like the degen, porn guy, but most of the interactions people were having with him were about the memes and the weird shit he drew. Like he was even on like PewDiePie's videos and stuff. But anyway, sorry. My interactions were like, I found a few of them, I'll put them up on screen. But it's like he did an artwork of Mark Zuckerberg. I respond Zuckerborg. He does an artwork of Onision. Again, a lot of YouTube commentary drama stuff, and I respond saying like, "Oh, that's the first time I haven't seen him in a banana suit." Like every interaction I had with him was with like safe for work, meme artwork, or even like when he drew like the minions with tits. So it's all like very memey stuff, and people don't realize that he was so popular back then. He was getting like 50,000 likes on every tweet. He was all over Reddit. Again, he was in PewDiePie videos multiple times. So my interactions were replying to memes with memes, and that got spun into, why are you best friends with Shadbase? Why do you support the lolly shit? Which I obviously don't. Like, I've always thought if you like that stuff, you should probably be on a list. And then, because I'm at the top, I think I've got a lot of the flack, despite people on the list literally being friends with him, in the past, or even living with him. So it's just like, I think by pure bad luck, I got a lot of flack because I'm at the top, which makes me seem like I'm the number one associate of him, when in reality,
like in fairness to you, Jay, like he was very clever in how he managed to market his persona, because he sort of courted the YouTube community by acknowledging our little dramas and the characters who we thought were being demonized by commentary videos. He would make a little comic that showed that he understood what was going on and that he also thought that person was bad. Like, I put one of his comics of Daddy of Five in the Daddy of Five video, and that's why I followed him. He made this Simpsons comic, like imagining Homer choking Bart but filming it for YouTube, and it was like professionally done. It looked like The Simpsons, and so I was like, so I followed him, and I was aware that he had a not safe for work side, but the extent of that,
I think most people didn't understand the extent. And again, the interactions are, like you said, he was very ingrained in that community with all the memes he made, so most people interacting just know the funny side or the edgy side so much, and it didn't, following him or interacting with him didn't mean you supported the weird shit.
Yeah, I saw that video of you confronting him years later. I don't know, I missed that because it wasn't on your channel. It was just like someone clipped a stream. How did that take place? He was streaming and you called in, something like that?
I called in, I confronted him, I called him a sick weirdo. I told him to take down the Keemstar picture. I was very polite about it at the time. I would not do the same thing today.
You are actually so polite.
Yeah, I do regret
really nice
one of the criticisms I've seen, even though like I should be the one YouTuber that's probably devoid of any criticism in this particular situation because I was the only one that called him out. But one criticism that I do accept is that I went too easy on him. And I do regret that. I do have multiple reasons for doing that at the time. As you hear in the live call, I had literally just woken up, right? So that's got to factor in. And at this time, like, everyone was in support of him or saying nothing about it. He had overwhelming support. Look at the chat at the time. All of them were calling me a pedo because I was asking him to take down pedo shit. It doesn't make any sense, but that was the narrative at the time. This was the time in my YouTube career, massive inverted commas there, because I don't even do it for a living, where I received the most hatred I've ever gotten to this day. That's the level of scrutiny I was under and the level of support that Shadbase was being shown.
Yeah, it really
so
shows
I
that the
did
narrative
go
can
easy
change.
on him. I would not today.
You did.
But at least I was the one that did something, and that's what I will say for my defense. But the criticism is valid. I accept that I did go easy on him, and I shouldn't have. I should have outright just called him a pedophile, quite frankly, because I do believe he is a pedophile for drawing that stuff. He would deny it, but he is. You're into drawing that stuff, you're a pedo, 100%. And I should have said that.
Yeah, it's like if you... I remember the argument being brought up, you know, the whole lolly thing where it's like, oh, it's a 5,000-year-old tree elf or something, but like he was literally drawing like actual real life children.
That's pretty much where
So
everyone draws the line, which, like, again, I don't believe that
Everyone
many
draws the
people knew
line now. Let's put that out there. Everyone draws the line now.
Yeah.
Not a single person other than myself and Keemstar said that at the time when it actually happened. And that is fucked. That is fucked. And that's why I believe that a lot of people on this list deserve the criticism. They do deserve it, because I think almost everyone on this list were aware that Shadman had drawn art of Keemstar's 7-year-old daughter, and then continued to interact with him, continued to follow him, support him, people that I like. There are people that aren't even on this list that definitely should be. Not because they were best mates with Shadman, but because when that happened, that incident happened, they continued to support him by following him and interacting with his tweets. And I don't agree with that. I think that is bad. I think that is worthy of criticism. If I can accept criticism for going too easy on Shadman, when I was the only one that did it, then I think it is more than fair to criticize those that did nothing.
I think there's levels. There's levels though, because some people would still actively defend him publicly afterwards, and they are lower on the list than Jay is. Jay is at the top.
I 100% agree. It's so important to note that the people involved in this witch hunt, the people who are being witch hunted, rather, the disparity between their involvement with Shadbase and others' involvement with Shadbase is so disparate, is massive. You've got people that were friends with Shadbase, that continued to be friends with Shadbase, that purchased his art, that supported his Patreon or wherever he was, that gave him money, that donated to him, that are worse, that are way worse than simply following him. And I understand, like I've said it myself, and I agree with it, a follow is not an endorsement. But in Shadbase's case, a lot of the people that were following him were, by proxy, endorsing him to some extent. I do not believe that they should have been following him. Now, I understand that that involvement is minor, minuscule, certainly by comparison to what others on this list have done. Every person involved in the YouTube drama community, commentators, whatever you want to call it, were involved in some capacity that used to follow Shadbase and interacted with his tweets. It was the whole community across the board. There was very, very little negative feedback for Shadbase. Again, other than myself and Keemstar. And I just find it so incredible that this opinion has changed in just 6-7 years. It's gone from one extreme to the opposite. And that is just incredible to me and just shows you like herd mentality and just fucking people being total sheep.
Right, because the sides have flipped on this issue because Shadbase, if you recall why he was getting this revenge on Keemstar, it was if Trump gets elected because of Keemstar's pushing for Trump on Twitter, for revenge, for him influencing people to vote for Trump, he was going to humiliate him by sexualizing his daughter. So from a morally relativistic standpoint, it's like, well, he gets what he gets, some people might say, you know, but then those people now are also demonizing everyone who supported that revenge for the Trump thing. It's like that the sides flipped on that culturally. It's weird. I mean, it's wrong either way, but I think the people who would have stood up for him, you look down that list, some of those people, excluding Dolan, they now would not be the people who are being transphobic against Chris Tyson or Ava. It would be, right, like they actually would be the ones going against transphobia. You can tell on that list, right? It's like Anissa. Anissa probably was defending Shadman not for free speech reasons, but probably ideologically because she wanted to punish Keemstar because Keemstar bad and Trump bad.
Did you really get no backlash back then when you did it?
I got huge backlash for saying it.
Did no one then say they agreed with you?
No.
That's crazy.
Not a single commentator or someone involved in the YouTube drama community or whatever you want to call it. Nope, not one.
It's probably a good time to mention the supposed picture of me and Shadman.
Oh yeah,
that's been circulating around. So there's a picture when I used to do the Insomnias, obviously like meeting all the subscribers and that, all the fans. There was a kid that went in my meet and greet queue because loads of people at those kind of gaming events, they cosplay and stuff as like, you know, characters in video games and stuff like that. One of them actually dressed up as Shadman at the time, and then people on Twitter took that and they ran with it like I actually met him in person and we're like mates or something.
Well, you're friends of some, yeah.
Yeah, but it's so easy to disprove. You can tell the backdrop's a meet and greet as well. I have no idea what the guy's height is, but also that kid is white. If you look at like his little fingies.
I think the person who initially posted it obviously intended it as a joke. But yeah, it's amazing that some people just ran with it as truth.
I thought that, which is like, yeah, because I mean, I wasn't too offended by it, to be fair, when I saw it. I was just like, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, surely people will know this is like a cosplayer, right? But yeah, Twitter moment, and then everyone started. I mean, that person that posted it, in the replies, they were actually mentioning how, like, people are like, is it him? Is it him? And it's like, no, it's really Shadman. You know, just wanting to stoke the fires a little bit more. But yeah, just Twitter moment.
I'll just say you're his best friend as well.
Well, Colossal, you've always, if there's a consistent ethic to your content and the stands that you take, it has always been to protect innocent children. It's always been to protect the innocence of children against exploitation. That's a consistent theme through your content. So it's no surprise to anyone who watches all of it that you would set aside any differences you would have with Keemstar. It would be like, no matter who was being targeted, you know, half the time you think Keemstar's a rat, half the time you think he's funny. You know he deserves to sometimes be criticized.
At this point. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think you're friendly.
I do have some bias there. And I'll put that in myself.
I think you might have intervened no matter who it would have been.
I would like to say that if I wasn't friends with Keemstar and I was still calling him a rat constantly, that I would do the same thing.
Yeah, I think you would.
If I was asked for an opinion on it, at least.
Yeah, I feel like morals, you would.
It seemed at the time that it was a very easy thing to call out. It was not something that I ever would have believed would receive backlash or total lack of support from anyone from. I still can't believe it to this day, like why that was accepted and supported over the exact opposite of what it should have been.
Yeah, what we're describing is the Overton window has moved a bit on this, and at the time you were towards the edge or a little bit outside the Overton window in defending Keemstar and criticizing Shadbase for doing it. You didn't get support. Like, it was considered an extreme thing to do, to intervene and make him not do that.
And I believe it has very little to do with morality. Morality is not completely reversed in the last 7 years. I think it is because of herd mentality. I think it is because of people always going with the safe opinion. Yeah. I'm not saying you have to do a Sneako and always go with the controversial opinion. Just have your real opinion. And then, therefore, you will never have a double standard. You will never be hypocritical. Just have your true opinion. Your opinion has not changed within the last 7 years. Not your true opinion. Just the one that you were putting out there.
I still can't believe people defended it as free speech, though.
All of this is basically a tit-for-tat distraction from the allegations, the proof, basically, that one of Mr. Beast's crew, Chris Tyson, Ava now, had a history of being a patron of Shadbase, and not just of interacting with the memes, but of encouraging the most degenerate side. And he had purchased a piece of physical art that was of the degenerate stuff, and that he has a whole chat log full of him having very questionable conversations, sexualizing, talking sexually with younger people, and encouraging Shadbase to create more content that sexualized young, like very young characters. That criticism of him and being like, look, here's proof that he is into prohibited things, forbidden things. Here's a proof that he's a creep. The Uno reverse card being used is, okay, well, if we're going to open up that can of worms, here's all of your favorite YouTube creators who also supported Shadbase. And so on this list is a ton of different people who had completely different types of involvement with him. They didn't have paintings up. They weren't encouraging him necessarily to draw younger characters.
Was it proven that she commissioned art from him?
I don't think
it's on the wall.
I
know that she had art on the wall. I think it might have just been
it matters. Regardless, is
oh no, it doesn't. But obviously, it's even
Lolly
worse
on the wall.
if so.
I feel like it doesn't really matter if it was commissioned. They still bought this artwork and put it on their wall.
And proudly
of a child.
I mean, you can see, like, isn't there an image of? Oh no, that's not the one that's hung up. That was hung up in the house that Mr. Beast is like awkwardly looking at in that one screenshot.
It doesn't exonerate Kris of anything. Like, it doesn't make him less of a degenerate. And it actually isn't revenge against the people who were being transphobic, because that list is not a list of people who were criticizing Kris. So it's just like, it's purely a distraction, like a whataboutism argument to try to take away from the heat that Kris is under.
And not a particularly good one, because Chris Tyson supersedes every single person on this list by an overwhelming amount.
You know, if you followed Shadbase and didn't unfollow him when you saw some of the art that he was into, that would have been a sign of you being sort of like accepting and progressive potentially, because half of what he was doing, from what I could tell, was making fuda, right? He's adding like cocks to things. So like, if you didn't unfollow that because he was doing like transgender cartoons, that was like, wow, this guy's, open-minded and based, whatever. You wouldn't be like, he's a pedo necessarily. There was also a side underneath that where he was sexualizing younger characters and in real life characters. But he was doing trans and fuda stuff.
Can we all say with 100% certainty at this point that Chris Tyson has at one point or another, perhaps still today, been sexually attracted to children?
Yeah.
My answer is yes. Let's go around the table here.
Yeah, from these leaks, it looks like it. It looks like it's too many jokes about it for it to not be something that he was at least normalizing.
Like maybe one, but the logs are just. It's just you could excuse. If you're excusing one as a joke, then you can't excuse.
Yeah, I'm trying to be devil's advocate, but I can't. I really can't. It's bad. It's really bad. Part of me thought like he was going to get a whole team, pull up all the receipts, disprove stuff. But yeah, as soon as that statement came, and it was so bad because it was like, she goes, like me and Mr. Breast have chose to end it amicably. And then obviously Jimmy came out 2 days later and it's like, no, I kicked her out and she's being investigated. Unlucky.
Well, they even found her Reddit account, and there's multiple comments talking about Lolly, like, positively. Like,
oh really?
Is that just straight up not proof that they were into children? Is that
real?
Hey, speaking of definitions, do you know, I think our listeners would be well served to hear the definition, the difference between proof and evidence. Do you mind if I define that quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This is important for the Dr. Disrespect situation and for this Kris situation. So you hear people you hear people use the word allegedly all the time, and we're very annoyed with that word because it seems to get used unnecessarily and it sounds like cowardice, right? The reason that people use the word allegedly is if you're making an allegation, if you're making a claim that could be defamatory, if it could cost somebody money, if it could ruin their reputation, then you have to be able to back that up. The fact that you didn't know that it wasn't true, and that it wasn't done to injure them on purpose, that it wasn't being done to cost them money, and that you didn't cost them money provably by making a false allegation. So it's like you can be on the hook for damages if you make an allegation under a certain set of conditions that is not true, that's meant to injure, and you knew it wasn't true. You can end up having to pay someone a lot of money. So proof and evidence are important here. Evidence is any piece of information. It can be a physical item. It can be a hearsay. It can be a story from someone. It can be something you saw, piece of video footage, a screenshot. That's evidence. When you have enough evidence to dispel the doubt in an allegation. So an allegation is a claim against someone where doubt exists. Okay, so the idea that Kris grooms minors, Dr. Disrespect grooms minors, this is an allegation, started as an allegation, and then people assemble enough evidence to dispel the doubt. So in the case of Dr. Disrespect, the evidence against him is that two Twitch employees have claimed that they saw logs where he was having inappropriate conversations with, sexting is the word they use, sexting with a minor with the intent to meet up with them, that he knew that it was a minor, and that is why he got fired. And Dr. Disrespect has come out and said, I have had inappropriate conversations with a minor that too often were inappropriate. So that is also, that's evidence, and what Twitch said is evidence, and that is the evidence against him. There aren't screenshots. There's no one has seen any text logs. There's lighter evidence against him. So you wouldn't
a little
say
bit more
there's
against Chris. Oh.
Right. So like there isn't yet proof, and that was what I was trying to say in the last podcast. Now, if you had to make me put a percentage on it, I would say 70 to 80% sure. 70 to 80% I believe personally that we're going to find out that he definitively had a sexual conversation with a minor. But that 20 to 30% is the, yes, Dr. Disrespect. So that 20 to 30% is the remaining doubt. Now, in the case of Kris, there is overwhelming amount of evidence that he had inappropriate conversations with a minor, and the evidence is in the form of a massive Discord log that one of his old mods uploaded with 500,000 messages. People are pouring through it right now. It's other evidence is firsthand stories from a guy who was tricked into a fake job interview where he disclosed a lot of this. There have been multiple different allegations, testimonies. There's overwhelming evidence. There's, I would say, proof that Kris has had inappropriate conversations with a minor. And so anyway, I just wanted to explain the difference between evidence and proof, because we throw these words around and allegations around a lot.
So in conclusion, for everything we've talked about, we all agreed that Chris Tyson, pedo, our opinion. We all agreed that Sneako is fucking insane and his views on age of consent make him a pedo sympathizer. We were all kind of split on whether or not Critikal was right in what he said in the debate against Sneako. I obviously said that no, Critikal is not right. Nerd also said that. I believe Jay also said that. And Pyro never really gave us a definitive answer.
Pyro's running for Prime Minister on the reform ticket.
If you would like to hear more amazing opinions, Colossal is always right. And speak to us about them, whether you agree or disagree or not. You can join our Patreon server, just $5 a month. Well worth your time and money. We do a multitude of things in there. I've been streaming some video games there this week, and many more to come. I'm going through the old Sega Genesis games. So come by, watch some of that. I'll interact with you in a limited capacity. If you annoy me, I'll throw you into something we call the maggot hole, where you're not allowed to interact with anyone for your own well-being and sanity. If you would like to post cats in the server and annoy Nerd City, you are very welcome to do so. If you would like to accuse Pyrocynical of various things of which he is guilty of, 100%, you can also do that. And if you would like to call Jay a little worm, which he is, you can also do that. $5 a month. Thank you for listening.